First up here, we have a topic list review here. Are there any changes to what we have in front of us here? Okay. All right. Well, it's a ambitious list, so we'll go with it as presented here and jump right into it here. So first up is the WACD meeting coming up. White papers and resolutions. Sarah or Doug, or who's going to take lead on this?
Well, I could speak to resolutions. There were 12.
Let's do that.
And from my capacity, if there's only one, I'm glad to say, is going to NACD. I think we were smart to wait on the Ways and Means Committee before we put forth the resolution on why do we have so many resolutions. As far as white papers, I'm not sure on that. Sarah may have something.
But before we leave resolutions, so did you say there are 12 resolutions?
Yes.
Okay. But then you said only one is going to NACD?
Yes.
But we haven't adopted them yet at WACD, so how do we know?
At this point, only one is.
Only one is relevant for national issue?
I think more of them are, but it's gotta go through the WACD before it goes to NACD.
Right.
So at this point, there's only one that's scheduled, would be talked about to go to NACD. Is that clear?
No. How many are we talking about at WACD? 12 or one?
Well,
Then how do we know that only one might go forward?
In the resolution format in the template, there's a selection where you say.
Got it. That was what I was asking originally, but I didn't ask it that way. Okay. Good.
but from my perspective, I read them all. And some of them looked like they might go to NACD. And there's another thing related to this. There were 221 NACD resolutions, 225 NACD resolutions scheduled to sunset. And I went through every one of them and said, these look like they're still relevant. There's some I don't agree with policy wise, but I think they're still relevant. So we'll see what happens there. What I like about that process is I like getting this policy book smaller. And if there's one that goes away, we can always resurrect it.
Right, thanks.
White paper, I don't know what I could say about that.
I haven't seen any white papers drafted to be sent around. I think a lot of the content is going to be in the form of presentations or like interactive sessions this year. So I haven't seen any specific stances, such as like the Sustainable Funding Committee last year had a white paper that was published ahead of time. This year, it's going to be more of a presentation. Here's the findings and the work of our committee. So there isn't anything that I've seen come through that is that type of content to review ahead of time.
Okay.
I guess there's going to be a discussion on legislative priorities, which were essentially the same as for the Conservation Commission, CTA, the Conservation Technical Assistance, Forest Health and Wildfire, and the business and technology transformation, basically upgrading the systems the commission uses to assist the districts.
So I personally haven't read all the resolutions yet. Are there any that either you're wildly supportive of or wildly opposed to that we should call our attention to?
No.
Okay.
No. Sarah was one of the meetings. How's that? What do you think?
I don't see anything that is a huge issue that I would have any heartburn or concern about. There are a couple in our process areas that the Legislative Bylaws and District Policies Committee passed that I think are of a lot of interest. One of those is there's a resolution regarding the Sustainable Funding Committee and Sustainable District Funding. It's basically to try and support giving the committee some additional layer of authority to move forward with sustainable funding recommendations. The resolution and the committee are both sort of working around each other in that space. The committee is going to present the findings and ask for feedback and direction at the meeting. The resolution is supposed to sort of just reaffirm that, yes, this is the voice of the community. We're going to empower this WACD committee to champion what we just heard the day prior in this. So that's an important, again, sort of layer of commitment, I guess, to move sustainable funding forward. I think the other one is that might be a little bit contentious in some spaces, but I think is also an important one to consider is Wade is a non-voting member on the commission and a voting member on the WACD board. It's a spot that right now Craig Nelson and I share. We split that as co-presidents of Wade. There's an interest from some of the commissioners on the commission and some of WACD and some other district leadership in having Wade, the Washington Association of District Employees, be a voting member on the commission. Because there's a different layer of perspective and knowledge base that's brought by that seat where it's the on the ground implementation. So it would still be one voice of a lot of other commissioners that represent agencies, several board members, at least 4 board members are represented on there. And it would be one seat to bring that perspective. What we've seen is that there's airtime given, right, in that seat. But it doesn't carry as much weight, right? Because it's not a voting member. And so there's interest in sort of being able to bring that perspective and some of the current board members on the commission are interested in that in a stronger partnership, I guess, between Wade and.
Does that require a change in state law? Isn't the commission composition set by state law?
Yeah,
It-
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a controversy a few years back about the Department of Fish and Wildlife becoming a board
I
member,
remember, yeah,
and that was kiboshed.
yeah. Okay, so if this resolution were to pass, it would be up to the commission to go work and try to get the state law changed.
Well, and it would so resolutions just direct WACD.
Yeah.
Right, so it would be up to WACD to work with the commission or champion some
Yeah.
policy.
All right, that's clear.
I will have some more notes on the WACD meeting that was the night before last.
Okay,
So
we'll do that under
there's
report.
one other that I think is related to what we're talking about right now, and that's a board retreat. There will be a sustainable funding discussion at that, so it kind of parallels with what Sarah said. The commission and CD relations, there's some hackles that have been raised lately about. These are Doug's words, the overbearing of the commission on district operations. Trying to tell the districts what to do more and be more controlling. That's my interpretation. And then the third one was the board structure. How to improve that.
Okay, any further questions on that? All right. Item 3 then is the NHCD annual meeting.
Do you wanna pick that off?
San Antonio, nice place, good Mexican food.
Still in Texas now.
Yeah. I walked around the last time I was there and I ran into the police when I was talking with them and said, one thing I noticed is there's no homeless people down anywhere. I haven't seen any of those. Yeah, there's a local law that they can't be downtown. I thought, well, I guess that's one way to deal with it.
That's.
And the main reason for bringing this to the board tonight is if you're interested in going, the early bird registration ends, I think either the day of or the day before our December board meeting. And so if you're interested in participating, we would love to get you registered for this now, while it's cheaper. So these are the dates. It is in San Antonio. If you haven't perused this website, it is a choose your own adventure. And as much as you want to participate kind of conference for the board, there's tours, there's a main couple day conference, there's all different sort of summits for different various national leadership, conservation district adjacent groups that meet and do their annual nationwide business here. There's local tours, there's other engagement and networking opportunities in the evenings. There's just a ton of stuff. So you can go for a short time or you can go for a long time. And various different things have costs. So any of those national resolutions will go to this meeting, right? This is the national version of our statewide thing, which is just much bigger deal. There's, I don't know, 1,000 people that attend these.
And it makes the representative really tired because you never get to go to any of the interesting sessions. You gotta listen to people pontificate all the time, but that's the way it is. One of It'd be on our dime, not in ACD's or WACD's dime at the time, so I'll do talk to Sarah and TJ about that. And they generally have like the chief of the Forest Service or the chief of the NRCS or the USDA undersecretary there. So there's some pretty big time people there, and they're pretty approachable too. At least I didn't think Betancourt was particularly approachable, the new chief of the NRCS, but Louis Aspey, the Undersecretary of Agriculture, I've talked to him a dozen times.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities there.
As I recall, we budgeted in the current budget for all of us to attend WACD. But I think that's a good question of what the budget would be for next year. We're gonna look at our budget later today, and so maybe knowing what we've actually spent this year under that scenario, and then how that would, whether the budget would even be sufficient to handle that next year.
Yeah, and I think we should have a discussion. Okay, Doug's been to 25 of these or something. And would that be beneficial? Which I think it would, but maybe it's been more beneficial for someone else to go that hasn't been to one. Or that's got a presentation or something.
And if we had a good understanding of interest of the board too, we could do some cost analysis.
Okay. Does anyone immediately say, jumping up saying I want to go?
I probably won't, just put that out there.
Yeah.
I already know I have a conflict. I'll be in Nashville the week before for the Cattlemen's Association, so I can't go directly from that to San Antonio as much as I would love to.
It's way more fun in Nashville.
I was in San Antonio last year though, and it was great.
So it sounds like there's 4 no's and then a maybe. So I think then it comes back to what's the cost and what's the value, so,
What's the value?
okay.
The Cattlemen's Association, I hope we get truck wall.
Yeah.
Smoking the baby.
All right, so that's that. Let's move on to item 4 then, looking at a new policy, or I guess an upgraded policy. On salaries, benefits, and PTO cost allocation methodology.
Right, what a mouthful. So this is the age-old practice of how we design comp rates at TCD, which is prescribed to us in a cost matrix worksheet that the Conservation Commission provides, and that's how the structure of all of our comp rates are put together. One of our funders, the Washington State Department of Health, said that they require, for use of their funding, entities have a policy about how their comp rates are determined. And going back to saying the State Conservation Commission gave us this formula and this is how everybody's been set up in the state isn't sufficient for them. They'd like to see an actual adopted policy that shares that methodology. So what Susan put in the example or the draft that she sent to you guys is that's the methodology in a policy.
The existing methodology.
It is, yep. So there's nothing's new, nothing has changed. We're not proposing anything changes. We should document what's happening and add it to our policy manual.
We can't make changes, is what I just heard, because it's a commission that dictates it. Okay, so there's really not much to talk about on here.
Tickle this to make sure that it's revisited at the commission ever makes change.
Yeah.
Right. If we ever had to do a different formula, and I think part of it is that different types of entities, so they don't just contract with state government entities, they contract with a bunch of different other entities to calculate fringe benefits in a different way than our comp rates and how those are utilized. And when you're going through an audit process, you often have to separate how public funding is used for those different spaces. That's my assumption, is that's what they're trying to get to, is what's the methodology behind how you put this together? Because it might look different between all of their different awardees for grant funding.
Okay. Comments, questions on this one?
I thought it looked decent. My 8th grade grammar teacher, though, would have a fit. The first time you used something like PTO, spell it out the first time and put PTO, because I'm thinking, okay, I can't remember what PTO means. Power takeoff is what it means to me.
Yeah.
And
And have you reviewed it then?
I don't think I've seen this one, but
It didn't go forward for your review. I think Susan submitted it as an item that didn't need legal review because it is just a summary of the legally reviewed process we're using.
If it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't part of it.
Okay,
But we can spell out PTO.
all right.
Illegal, I would have said, page time off.
Yeah.
You're after, you haven't.
Yeah,
So.
okay. Well, it sounds like that's just something we've got to do to get money from the Department of Health.
It keeps them happy, yes.
Okay. All right. Item 5 then, the final review of our strategic plan.
Yay. I will pull that up. I'm really excited. This has been a robust, but I think really fun and rewarding process, at least on this end of things. And I don't often get to really focus in a layer of depth on a project. It's a lot of oversight and direction and putting out fires on a lot of different projects. And so this was a fun experience. This year, are we seeing on screen? I don't want to go over things too much. I sent out an email with this. It had the sections that were added and updated, some narrative components to strengthen our priorities that were in there, all of which you've seen already. And additional appendices that have, and here's the list of those, just a little bit more data about our foundation and history and function, a little bit more data about Thurston County. These are things that were included to some degree in our prior strategic plan. They are supposed to be illustrative of those items, not all inclusive, right? Because we can get very expansive in every single study we use locally, but these are just some of the examples that sort of harken back to those 4 priorities and sort of share a little bit of the flavor with our community members, folks that read this, partners, about the breadth, I guess, of where we're drawing our information that's guiding the work that we do. So it's a little bit more expansive in some areas and a little less expansive in others, based on the way the priorities are in there. So I would just love to hear if you guys have any thoughts or if there's any sections of the plan that you particularly want to spend time discussing or having conversation about or providing feedback on.
I don't have any feedback. I think we've been through it and it all looks pretty good.
Well, what I like is the mission and vision, where the Thurston County residents support, they envision the future of forest farms and waters that are protected, etc. I love that because it isn't just environmentalists.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy seeing that there. Just saying. Yeah.
It's great. That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Nice one.
I like the different approach. I've been through a bunch of iterations of the rational, normal, routine, old way of doing it. I think this trying something different is really good. I like the idea of here's what we're trying to do, and then the action plans will be here's how.
Yeah.
I like that. And I got in trouble with my old jobs for saying we need a communications plan to tell people how we're going to do this, and I'm glad to see that in here. How we're going to communicate all this stuff. So good job, staff.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah.
I have one question. So
Yeah.
at the last meeting, we made some suggestions for changes to language.
Mhm.
And it wasn't done in a track changes way,
Mhm.
so it was really hard for me to figure out. I mean, I like what this
Yeah.
says here, but I can't really tell how it changed based on the discussion we had last time.
No, you haven't read that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the changes that we made based on the discussion that we had in the board meeting are the key initiatives and actions section, which I will scroll to because let's see, this is the bullet point that we had the most conversation about. I think we had a lot softer language about it was something, it was around like striving for resources or working towards easements. And so we changed it to a lot more active and definitive language. We are going to emerge as regional leaders, not strive to be leaders in this space. We are going to secure funding, not seek funding. I think the word was seek that was in there.
Yeah.
And so that was largely the content change that was articulated at the meeting, and then in the appendices where there's a lot more of the data and maps in pieces, there was a recommendation that we include some visuals in that section to illustrate some of the data and plans that we draw from rather than just a list of hyperlinks. So those were kind of the two big takeaways, was to really strengthen this language to champion that item stronger, and then to add those visuals.
Okay, thanks for the explanation. It looked to me that it captured our discussion, but
Okay.
because it wasn't redlined, I wasn't sure.
Yes, yes.
But it makes sense, and I like the new language.
Yeah, I like the track changes stuff, and I've also suggested in the past use line numbering. So you can say page 42, line 16.
Yeah.
And it strikes me another thing, and I don't think we've talked about this. It'd be good when we adopt it to have a one-page summary of this thing
Yes.
to take
Yes.
for handouts, and so we can explain it when we do our elevator pitches and that sort of thing.
So this is definitely useful and functional and for us to navigate. And I'm hoping that tonight you'll approve the content, right, of this, and then we will turn this over to our outreach team to make one pagers, to make a visual magazine version of this,
Cool.
but to make social media campaign posts about
Sure.
this. Like they'll take it and run with it in a visual sense, but we want to make sure the language is what you want first. Then we'll turn this into the commission. They can have the Word doc version. Then we'll create a suite of materials based on this that we'll use in things like our rates and charges campaign next year, our CEC, that whole process.
Sarah Moorhead starring in the video on Thurston CD's strategic plan. I think it should be a video too.
We're all gonna be in a video next winter.
So that sounds good, and I was hoping that we were gonna have some sort of summary piece, because we also talked about wanting to go out to all the jurisdictions, the
Yeah.
city councils and stuff, and do that in 2026.
Yeah.
So having that one pager is the perfect leave behind when we go make those presentations. Yeah,
Kind of akin to what we do for when we go for rates and charges.
only we have to do it to 5 different groups of people, elected officials this time, I guess, so. Six. Okay, anything further on the strategic plan? It is teed up for a vote during the board meeting. All right. Then let's move on to, I think, our big meaty item of the work session here, next year's budget.
As I pull that up on screen, I definitely just want to take a minute to celebrate Yen. And I just closed this, who is absolutely phenomenal as our senior accountant at the district, and makes the budgeting process so smooth. We have things coming in from all different directions. We have numbers everywhere. We have so many people that participate and aggregate information. And Yen has developed the smoothest system to track the entire world's worth of data and distill it to this budget. And we're truly spoiled with Yen and the work that she does. So I just want to say thank you to Yen. And now that I closed it, because I was so excited, I'm gonna open it again. And then I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna be able to see it. And then I'll zoom in so you can really see it. You might have caught in some of my communications to you a really exciting data point before we jump into this. In a year that we entered 2025 with a whole lot of unknown in the world. There was a state budget deficit. We were not sure how we were going to turn out in the legislature. The federal government was doing something other than what they should do as a federal government. All kinds of other things were happening there. We didn't know what kind of funding we would see. And a lot of districts were really nervous, and some of them didn't fare well. They're not filling positions. They don't have the diverse funding that and strategy that has been really well thought out by TCD's leadership, to put a good budget forward. Our budget is doubled moving into next year, which I think is just impressive generally, but also given the current climate that we're in and the diligence that we're putting behind structuring our funding applications and doing our really detailed forecasting to make sure we have funding always coming in succession and filling these gaps in places. A lot of that funding is for on the ground project expenses, right? It's not a ton of money additionally for, salaries and benefits. There are some new positions, right, that we've added, but this is all conservation work going on the ground in our community. So I just wanted to celebrate that data point. As I've mentioned before, we took the strategic plan draft once we got those priorities that the board agreed on and approved to move forward, that sort of guide our program allocations and our unrestricted budget. You saw those in here, and we'll work through that in a minute. What we did as well, though, and something that we've always wanted to do, but our strategic plan was too broken out and complex, is also code all of our restricted funding, all of our grant funds to say these are the priorities that they fall under. And so with an approved budget moving into 2026, this is going to be the back page of your one pager with our strategic plan, is saying, here's all of the $9 million that the district has, and here's the priorities that they're going to really holistically across the board. So that all of our taxpayers can see what they're investing in at TCD and the landscape. So as a communications person, I have goosebumps. I'm really excited about it. Any big questions before we just do a quick peek at the structure?
Since it's on the screen, I have one question.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about. So under unrestricted income, we get about $565,000 in rates and charges. That's based on the $5 per parcel, 10 cents per acre.
Mhm.
Am I right in thinking that if we went and we got $25 per acre, it would just be simply 4 times that? So it would put us up to just over $2.5 million a year in rates and charges dollars?
Yep.
I have a question, but it's not really about this budget. I'm just curious what the budget was like about 5 years ago. I know, right?
I mean, visually that's
Yeah.
represented like this.
Yeah.
I think roughly around $1 million.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, a little over that when I joined the board,
Yeah.
I think.
yeah, that makes sense.
That was when Doug was writing reference letters for the 5 people that were left.
Yeah, yeah.
I do have a question.
Sure.
And you may have this off the top of your head, but I could see it coming up in a public meeting. What percent of the budget actually goes on the ground?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Doug. I'm gonna scroll, so don't get seasick here, to this number right here, which is our administrative expense to budget ratio. This is not what is physical on the ground projects that you can kick, but it also captures services into the community. 6.69% is the administrative piece. It's getting checks signed. It's putting together meeting minutes. It's all of the it's the accounting. It's the integral part that makes the world go round. Everything else, though, is direct programs and services in the community. It's education, it's technical assistance, it's plan writing, it's bridges, it's riparian zones that were being planted, it's manure storage structures, it's K-12 lessons, it's working with the legislature and taking them out on tours. It's all of that other stuff. 6.69% is keeping the lights on and things processing internally, which also is like a big testament to a very small but powerful team of administrative humans at TCD that keep the other, I'm not good at percentages, but the other percent on the ground.
That seems to me to be a subset of what's normally called overhead. So I'm thinking of ways to compare that to Department of Ecology, University of Washington. I used to rate grants, and the University of Washington was 48% overhead, which I thought was incredible.
Yep.
But so I think we should have a response for that question too. I mean, this is valuable.
Yeah, I think 20% is right around where like the good nonprofit best management practices. Government is usually higher than nonprofits, and 20% is sort of the like, if you're below 20%, that's a gold star, and we're below 20% by law.
Gold star.
Very good for grant funding.
Sounds like a platinum star.
Right.
Yes.
And I think last year, I was just talking with Yen about it, it was somewhere around like maybe 15 or 14%. So it's even,
So what accounts for like cutting that in half?
we have so much more money going on the ground. We are just our
Just brought in
project.
so much more money.
So many more grants.
Right, we hired 2 new people and we got tenfold more dollar, at
Yeah.
least on the ground in sort of in project output. So
That's
I
great.
really like it when we can tell the county commissioners, yeah, for every dollar we get from you, we get 10 back or whatever it is.
that's what it was
Yeah.
last year.
I
It's
remember
gonna,
you saying that at the hearing, and that was really powerful.
It
it's
looks like
an
it's gonna be closer to 15 or 18
Yeah.
times this year.
excellent return on investment.
That's good.
Yep.
So unless there's any other questions, you see just a really distilled, consolidated, unrestricted and restricted income. Again, when we get down further below, the restricted expenses are all of our grants, right, that have deliverables, and those are already sort of written. You've approved those contracts, they're signed, and they're in the hopper. The unrestricted expenses are the space to spend a lot more time to have some conversation, to look at where those dollars are going. That is things like our overhead income, that's things like our rates and charges where there's a lot more discretion. That money tends to, one, pay for a lot more administrative pieces that need to wield the other, percentage of that pie. As well as special initiatives. This is where we get money for our savings. And this is where we have time to invest, where we have gaps in our restricted income. So let's see. This is still at a high level. I'm going to jump down unless there's any questions. This is all of our restricted income by various grants. And I'm going to jump into the unrestricted budget, but definitely we can spend time elsewhere. This is a bigger breakdown, a more detailed breakdown of all of the different spaces that we're seeing income coming into the district and accounting for that in our unrestricted category. Not a ton of change. Any of the numbers that you see that might be different are just based off of actuals and anticipated. And we take a really conservative approach when we estimate income coming in, because we would rather be really surprised that we got more than got less. And that's standard from year to year. The expense category is the one that I want to spend the most time or think might be the best use of your time to spend looking at. I'm happy to go through real quick and point out some big changes that we've had or some moderate changes that we've had. But then I'd love for you guys to ask questions or direct the conversation where you'd like. I think the biggest change that you're going to see right now is a reduction in this conservation TA space, which is flexible technical assistance dollars. Because we got millions of dollars in our restricted category that we don't have the demand for this time that we did in the past. So we've just shifted all of that work to grant funding. So there's still that amount of focus and technical assistance being provided. It isn't a reduction in that service. It's just the funding is elsewhere and not in our unrestricted budget.
I really like how y'all are showing how the budget reflects the priorities. That's just, you should do a webinar on that, I think, and
It's been
take it
several
down to the
years
state
coming.
capitol, and it's really good.
Thank you. We would love to. We have some other expenses coming up in the next year as well. We included, and so this is starting to be responsive to our newly adopted or about to be adopted strategic plan. We're increasing funding for things like the working lands component. We are teeing up some large collaborative grants, as you probably read in my report, with others, but investing some more time in doing that coordination, doing that funding development, and furthering that piece. is a change in here. You'll also see there's a little bit of funding to support the FarmLink program, which is being written into some of these grants, but just to continue to put that funding where the strategic plan priorities are and be responsive to some of the board discussion that we've heard thus far. We are up against state law around ADA compliance for our website, and we need to have some structural pieces done. Thankfully, we don't have to do a data migration like we've done in the past with the cloud. That was super expensive, but IT is there's always a cost there for some reason. We have done a lot of conversation with our landlord and the city of Tumwater on permitting for some permanent signage at the district, which has been really fun. We're going to need to carry that construction or implementation of that project over into next year and put some more money behind it because it's been a more challenging project to put signs on the building than other things that we have done. And some of the signs that are currently on the building from other spaces are not permitted and those are coming down. So we don't want to get caught in that conundrum. Investing in future conservation, you see some of that space reduced here. That was a lot of like funding development and grant writing and pieces. A lot of our project grants will pay for the development of future successive projects and proposals and pay for that time. So again, that's an expense that's really just moved into our restricted budget. You'll see two new line items or three new line items here in the middle under this priority 4 investment in organizational excellence. Some of this is a reallocation of largely a lot of my time into things that are value added that don't need to be captured and recorded as an administrative expense. Signing timesheets is an administrative expense. Meeting with the legislature for legislative day is not. It's something that's value added for our community. And so we've moved a lot of that time into these program allocations. The rates and charges line item as well. That's a comprehensive line item that pays for the staff time, the materials to print to do this, the rate study, the consultant fees for that.
Is that based on the last time we did it, or
Mm-mm.
how do we come up with that number?
We got a quote from
Got it.
the consultants
Okay.
as a district in today's world. What would that cost us?
Got it.
Those are the program allocations. I'm going to pause. Any questions about those pieces?
I had a couple.
Sure.
So I saw that the CEC was budgeted 60,000 last year and 60,000 this year. How much do we have in that pot right now?
So are you talking about in the savings account specifically or the line item?
Well, we have two separate things. We said we wanted a reserve fund
Yeah.
and we wanted a CEC fund.
Mhm.
And I know we dipped into the reserve fund last year for the move.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't see where the reserve fund showed up there. Maybe I just missed it.
It's at the very bottom of the whole document and
Got it.
down here.
Okay. So how is that compared to previous years? And how's that? So the CEC is the same. I guess the question is that sufficient? And how much have we put aside over time for that project? And how much have we put aside over time for our reserves?
Yeah, so we're doing two things with the CEC, but I'm going to answer your question first about the reserves because you can see the year-end balances and what those are projected to be in this budget here in the notes, both for the CEC savings space and for just our operating reserves.
Got it.
We also, this is money that we are putting away for whatever you guys would like to do with in the future regarding to the CEC. If we need to put a down payment on land, if we want to hire another consultant or a contractor, an architect or whatever, this is money that we're putting away to use for that. We also, though.
So
sorry,
looking at that, so why the $10,000 reduction in the CEC?
We can definitely focus more here if we want to move other widgets in other spaces. This was the funding that our budget supports for putting money away for the CEC. We have the CEC also captured in the budget expenses for the coming year for the work we're doing in that year without dipping into the CEC reserve.
I think we always envision the reserve as buying something with it.
Mhm.
And so the price of things that you buy is
Yeah.
not going down, so I'm wondering why that's going down.
Yeah.
'Cause if we were to enter into a transaction today, it would be more expensive than it was last year or the previous year.
Absolutely. And we can move money around however the board would like to see in here. So if you would prefer to put less in our general reserve fund and more in the CEC, that's at the board's discretion. You can see what the year-end balances are in both of those spaces.
To TJ's point, it's not gonna go down. It's only gonna go up, so I wonder if we should just have it moved. So that it shows.
I mean, it makes sense to me to not have that go down. If we're serious about doing this and we're trying to demonstrate to partners or
Mhm.
potential partners our seriousness, we should be able to say, we're maintaining this consistent investment in being ready to do that project.
Yeah, I'd
It's
concur.
confusing otherwise.
Even if we find out 6 months that, boy, that didn't work very well, we can change that.
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely, you have the authority to move that back again or however you'd like in future,
Yeah.
so we can do that.
Yeah.
Would you like to see another $50,000 investment in the CEC savings and we can reduce the reserve fund by 10? Or would you like to see a different amount in the CEC savings fund?
I personally am comfortable maintaining. I don't necessarily need to increase it, but
I think that's correct, yeah, just take from the other reserve fund savings and put the 10,000 back into the CEC.
that sound,
That's fine. I would have said a little more, but that's fine.
well,
I
I'm,
don't know.
I'm okay with a little more. I just don't think it should go down.
No, it shouldn't go down.
Yeah,
If it's
unless there's some other place
something,
to take it
maybe.
rather than the reserve
Yeah.
fund. I mean, that makes sense to me, but there may
Yeah.
be a better place.
Well,
I don't know what
and
it is.
if we have the opportunity to get land or whatever for this project, we can always pull from the reserve in the
Yep.
same way we did to
Right.
finance the move to this facility.
Right.
We just have to take an action to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
So I'm hearing that we will add $10,000 to the CEC savings plan and we will reduce the reserve fund by 10,000.
Agreed.
correct.
Yes.
Except we're not making any decisions here.
It's direction.
The document you presented.
Just being clear.
I didn't hear a motion that there.
No.
Don't make a motion.
Were there any other questions about that piece or the program allocations? Because I want to also give you an opportunity to look at just the administrative expense section to see where some of those pieces are. And this was the other line item for those of you that might not see that for our expenses for the CEC just for the next year, whether that's consultants, staff time, whatever. That's just the 2026 calendar year budget.
Yep.
So here's our administrative expense area. You can see that our salaries and benefits was reduced some in this category because you're seeing more of that work more accurately characterized in our program allocations, as I already talked about. This is the second and final year of the 36-hour work week adjustment that we committed to as part of our collective bargaining agreement. So this is completing that journey. Moving down a little bit, some of the changes that have occurred. Again, I mentioned IT is just expensive and always is increasingly more expensive. But we did find some nice things, which is that some of our utilities that we anticipated happening in this building were less. So not by much, but now these are based on actuals, right? This is the reduction I mentioned earlier in the network software for the data migration. Lots of IT things again. We don't have to do that again, which is lovely. Nothing else is super monumental.
Why the big drop in the liability insurance premium?
The first one.
Just the price has,
We just
Gone
found better
down, yeah.
insurance?
just the rates
The
have,
rates went down.
yeah, it's same insurance through Doris, rates have gone down in general.
That
This
is
the
happened.
first time
Right.
we raised the rates in the past, what, 5 years?
They look
Yeah,
at your
we haven't ever
previous-
seen them
Yeah.
They'll
decrease.
look at your previous year.
Right, that's what I thought, so, right?
So also another great silver lining.
Mhm.
Everything else is fairly status quo.
Mhm.
Any other questions about that? That's the unrestricted budget.
I haven't seen the new endurance policy versus the old endurance policy, and I have some time in my budget if you want me to do a comparison to see if there's an explanation, an unpleasant explanation for the change.
The coverage hasn't changed. Yeah, I think it's just their rates that they're,
Just
that
the
they're.
rate, so it's just the rating, all right, so they haven't changed any coverage terms or added any riders.
Nope.
Okay, great. Wow.
Yeah, I understand we've got more
Well, you
people
meant for the-
participating, so that, you know, the scope and scale.
Bigger the risk pool.
Maybe
Mm,
made it go down.
And there also might have been a drop off in litigation
Yeah.
efforts.
Yeah.
Insured, there's insured entities, there's a pool.
Yeah, it
okay.
is.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
So presumably other districts rates went down as well.
If, depending on what the explanation
Yeah.
is, whether
Yeah.
it's idiosyncratic or general.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Anything further? We're not taking action on this tonight. We're gonna take action next month.
Yep.
So we have time to continue to think about this and look at it.
And reach out if you have questions and we'll make this change. And unless we hear any others, we'll put this on the board meeting for approval in December.
Yeah, and let's do it under governance as a standalone item versus on consent because it's a big deal.
That sounds great.
Okay. All right, item 7, the CEC, we have a potential resolution to talk about here.
Yeah, this was a really excellent idea. David, do you want to speak to this? Your name is actually, I think, on this.
Yeah, just during our work session for the CSD last time, I just brought up the fact that working for the tribe, one of our things is always buying property, right? So we put something in place so Ben's uncle could secure this property. They have the authority to secure the property so that we don't lose the opportunity. That way he can then bring it back to or Sarah can then bring it back to the group of us. We can make our decision at that point. But this kind of basically is what this would do. It just gives Sarah a little more authority. If she sees something that she likes that fits what we've already discussed 100 times, right? What we want is as the board here, Sarah would have the authority to tie it down, I guess, until further action can be made by us.
And so this concept that David shared, we ran that over to Ben and Ben drafted the resolution that you see here. And what it shares is that if we, as we're looking at properties collectively and we have interest in them, and I'm out having conversations with those folks and there's a lot of other people that are starting to put in offers. I have the opportunity to put our name on the table with some small percentage of interest money or some letter of interest. If we don't have enough time to act nimbly to bring that back to a full board meeting, it does have that nice check and balance though, which I appreciate, which is like, we can't enter into, there's no agreements for sale or purchase of property. Like the selection is still, that right is reserved for the board. But this is an opportunity that if we need to make a quick decision, it doesn't have to wait or come back to the board meeting, or we have to have a special meeting to share that interest with a property owner.
Even might not. But the idea was to provide nimbleness with guardrails without committing the district without
Anything.
board action. There's still some potential costs that could be incurred to tie up the deal that Sarah thinks is the right one and then comes back to the board and the board says, no, that's really not it. There will be a cost associated with that kind of circumstance, but it's probably a cost worth risking to avoid losing the right property to some other purchaser who can act more quickly and get something on paper.
So it's like earnest money.
Yeah, it commits.
But could you, so it depends on how much that earnest money is, if you're gonna lose it, you know,
And it's capped.
it's capped at what?
Yeah, what was it? It's in there.
The earnest money piece is, so there's a couple, these are the caps right here on the screen. 10% of the purchase price
10%.
for earnest money, but if
Ooh.
there's other incidental payments, like it's up to, not to exceed.
Okay,
Okay, so that, I think that was where my concern was. So let's say you get this straight thing and it's $1 million. And they say we need 10% earnest money down. We
Right.
need, $100,000 down. And you say, yeah, that sounds great. And you come to the board and we say, no,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound great. Do we lose the $100,000?
yeah, that's good.
So I think in functionality, that's probably not how I would operate under this resolution. I would be calling one of you and saying, hey, there's this really great.
Well,
idea."
I know that.
But I hear what you're saying.
But from a technical perspective, earnest money would be non-refundable if
Usually.
the board vetoes Sarah's purchase decision.
Depending on what contingencies and conditions are in the purchase.
So you can have contingencies or conditions that are within a number of days.
Right, and
So that's what they could do.
I think there's another section that talks about. And so once I should have read this, but I just remember. The idea was to also have a purchase and sale agreement that has the ability to claw back earnest money
Yeah.
on contingencies.
Right.
But
And the way that the resolution is worded is that all of those actions would have to be ratified by the board. And so any kind of offer that we made would have to have the contingency in it that I'm signing this today, it has this money. But this action isn't actually valid, like this offer isn't actually valid unless it's ratified by the board. So they can see that good faith, but I think that was our clawback strategy was.
So we don't actually transmit the earnest money until the board has acted.
well, it's transmitted, but it can be clawed back. But I think that the way this would practically work out is that I would be involved in drafting the contingencies, because they aren't gonna be standard real estate contingencies.
Yeah.
And the contingency on board action, I would draft so that earnest money is refundable if the ratification contingency is not satisfied within the 30 days. So essentially, the earnest money goes to an escrow company,
Yeah.
be held in trust for us until it's ready to be paid. And then if the contingency isn't met, we say contingency's not met, it's refundable, we fund it back. So that's the way I would see any particular deal being structured. Sarah would negotiate a price and then get it to me, and I'd put together protected contingency.
So that makes sense to me, and I trust that you would do that. But why not put it in the resolution to make it clear that that's what would happen? Any earnest money put down would be refundable if the board vetoes the decision. I mean, I think it should be in the resolution just to maintain our kind of control over the resources.
I agree.
It isn't urgent that we do it tonight either. Or,
Yes, I can go back, sharpen my pencil and try to sharpen up the section on contingencies to.
Yeah.
So we can roll this over on one thing.
So, I mean, I keep
No,
talking,
no,
but
no,
does that make sense?
No, I
Makes sense.
agree. I
Okay,
agree.
so let's take another stab at building that protection clause in and then bring it back next.
Yeah, I mean, the
great.
danger is. Well, danger the seller will not want. To talk to us, but that would probably arise when they see the contingency. I don't think they'd be reading our resolution. And our resolution might actually strengthen the contingency, because we could say any purchase sale agreement contrary to the resolution of ultra fires. So, okay, I think I check with the pencils, be sure this up.
Okay, great. Any other issues with, it's good to have the policy.
Yeah, I think so. It works good for the tribe. I mean, we've done, used that for years.
Yeah.
Some other issues with the resolution?
When I first read it, I thought, no way in hell, and then I read it farther, it said, Sarah can't make these decisions all by herself, and
Yeah.
but I had the same concern that's been brought up.
Okay, all right, so make that change. We'll take a look at this next month. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, David. All right, that moves us to item 8 here. We're doing pretty well, 36-hour work week.
Yeah. And I can pull that information up, and while I'm doing that, anyone else from the 36-hour work week, Mary Ann or Doug, do you want to share anything? Otherwise, I'll jump into
We'll go ahead
those
and.
items that we
Yeah.
prepared.
Yeah, let's-
Lot of analysis.
Lots of analysis. So you got a memo and a sort of a one-page distillation of a 47-page report that came out of the 36-hour work week analysis. As you remember, this was an element of our collective bargaining agreement where the staff had requested a 32-hour work week, and we negotiated if you would do a 36-hour work week trial. And so that's what we've been doing this year. A lot of the year was spent sort of integrating us into that 36-hour work week and learning that new rhythm, and how that functions here at TCD and the costs associated with that. Part of that trial was to meet this fall and sort of analyze how are things going. We had a couple of different pathways, as you saw in my memo, that we could choose. One of which was to sort of extend this trial a little bit further into next year. And I'm grateful that we had the forethought to do that, because we really got used to the 36-hour work week to start to see how it was functionally about the time it was to survey and see how the 36-hour work week was working. And so the recommendations that are coming out of this joint board and staff 36-hour committee are to maintain a 36-hour work week in the coming year and continue to do another analysis of how things are going next year, and then determine if 36 hours is the appropriate work week in the future or if additional changes are recommended. So a couple of pieces on that. As you see on your screen here, these are the pathways that were negotiated within the collective bargaining agreement, depending on which option the committee chose. This informs what will happen in 2026. This highlighted section here, maintaining the 36-hour work week, is the one that we're recommending. This is the timeline associated with that we would continue this 36-hour work week. We would continue to do another layer of staff survey and another layer of financial analysis. We might ask some additional questions based on feedback and the results that we got in this last year, that really looked at how are things working in comparison to a 40-hour work week, in comparison to the prior year. That was one of the things that the committee discussed, is we feel really confident that a 36-hour work week is working well. There's not really any need to return to a 40-hour work week. What we really don't know is a 32-hour work week going to be better than 36? We didn't gather that kind of data and feedback. And so that's an analysis that we want to spend some more time in a 36-hour work week, and then have more of that data and information pulled next year. And that we'll continue that. The 36-hour work week committee will continue to convene. We'll review that information. We'll have the same conversation. We'll analyze those results, and then we'll make a permanent recommendation back to the board next fall. And if there's any cost implication, that'll be integrated into the 2027 budget. Any questions on the recommendation or any of the components of the collective bargaining agreement, or any of the survey results and feedback?
I really expected this to be way more controversial. It seems like it's going pretty smoothly.
One of our biggest concerns, I think, was just being available to the public, and that hasn't been a factor at all.
No, it hasn't. I think in part because our services are not structured on the days that, like, for example, we trialed our office being closed except by appointment only on Fridays. All of our other programs and services are not structured, like our equipment rental, drop off and pickup are not structured to occur on Fridays. So we have not received any sort of negative feedback about people dropping by spontaneously, which isn't really what they do at TCD. They don't really drop by spontaneously. They always make appointments. And so what I've observed too is that we have lots of staff that are working on Fridays, some remote, some in the office, some are out on site visits. And so that business as usual still has the opportunity to continue. And just not having an administrative presence at the front hasn't really had any impact to our workload or our workflow. Or access. We haven't had any concerns, complaints, questions, confusion about access either.
Questions, Bill? So I guess I have an observation and then a concern. Staff reports that they're just as productive in a 36-hour week as they were in a 40-hour week. But we're awarding more comp time, exchange time, and overtime. So we might be doing the same level of work, but all of those things have gone up to some degree.
The comp and exchange and overtime has gone down.
I thought it went up. Unless I read that wrong.
I'll pull that piece up. Overall staff are using less of those.
Okay, I thought they were using more. Must have read it backwards.
Yeah, let me stop sharing and then let me pull up the. Let me pull up the report summary. And reshare. Okay. So we're looking at it in the consolidated format, which is not, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, the format that I reviewed this data last time. Let's see.
Is it in the cost of the 40+ hour comp time,
Yeah,
2024 versus 2025?
Right.
that's what I saw.
So you can see a reduction in that cost associated here from 2024 when we had a 40-hour work week to 2025.
I read that backwards. Okay. So it has gone down.
And I think you'll see the comparisons for things like how many staff have gone over and gone comp time, which is time and a half. That's over 40 hours. That's a federal law. 13 staff members went over last year in the 40-hour work week, only 7 staff.
I read all of this backwards.
It
So
just
I figured that never mind. It would have made sense to me if it had the 2024 data first and then 2025. But at any rate, I'm satisfied with that. My second, I think, larger concern is you said that we haven't had any public comment or concern about reduction in services. And clearly the staff is happy with this. I don't think we really know how the community feels. Just because they don't complain doesn't mean they like it. And so I'm wondering if we're going to do this another year, if we can build in a way to more proactively ask the community and the partners and the people we work with if they've noticed an impact. Are you seeing slower response times from our staff, longer times to get site visits, that sort of thing? Because it might, I mean, staff has a perspective about their productivity.
Yeah.
It could be that the community has the same perspective, or they might have a different perspective, but we don't know yet.
I think the one sort of concern I would have about collecting reliable data in that sphere is can we ask them to compare things reliably and isolate the factors that could be contributing to that? Are they going to compare an experience they had 3 months ago with an experience they had 10 years ago? Are they going to compare an experience that they had getting their soil tests back in the height of the spring wave versus when they asked in January? Like, are they going to understand if it's related to the work week or if it's related to other factors? Are they going to
Well, I guess from
Yeah.
my perspective, doesn't matter what it's related to. If there's an impact on the community by something we're doing, whether it's the work week or something else, it'd be good to know what that impact is and try to suss that stuff out.
You
So
wouldn't-
that I agree with. Yeah.
You wouldn't need to do it as a comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You just need to do it as a, let us know how you're,
How we're doing.
yeah,
Don't put,
and a measure of,
Yeah.
you know, time and, you know, how our service does, et cetera.
don't put excuse me, keep interrupting you.
That's okay.
Don't put sideboards on, because that focuses people to answer it in a certain way, leave it open-ended. It's
Yeah.
open-ended.
yeah, and that makes sense. I just think we need some degree of feedback from the community.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
It's a good idea.
I think a satisfaction survey is great.
Good
I think that's wonderful.
Mhm.
And then we can.
Yeah.
Interpret where is that coming from and where are the pinch points? I think
And-
that sounds
And
great.
Sarah, do you wanna also share like how many staff felt that maybe they needed a little more time than 36 hours? Was there any of that?
We did, I mean. We did have one survey respondent that's a part-time staff
Yeah.
member that
Mhm.
was interested in going back to a 40-hour work week. But
But
they don't
that's
work
just-
40 hours anyway,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I know, it wasn't, I
but
forgot that, that's what it was.
I didn't know if that's what you're talking about,
It
but.
was, and then I was like,
Overall, though, you saw there was pretty
Yeah.
broad-based support for moving to this. I think it was a transition for folks, and that's another thing that I'm interested in is having continuity into next year for everybody to continue to be productive
Yeah.
and to be comfortable and excel in this work week that they have before we consider any kind of change.
And I will say, I appreciate Sarah doing that with, you know, continuing the 36 hour, because there was staff really wanting to move it to 32.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I do appreciate that.
And I will say that was well received by the committee and
Yeah.
the staff representatives. They understood
Right.
that determination and they could see that would bring value, because that transition was one of the points of feedback that came up in the survey. Reporting through those transitions, so.
Okay, so the recommendation is to continue with the 36-hour week. And I think the addition is to get this feedback that we want from the community to see if there are impacts.
Yeah.
About that or anything else. So is that where the board is at on this? I don't think we need a formal action on
That
this.
sounds good.
Sounds good. I do have an underlying thing, and this is probably just Doug's view of the world. Going to 32, if I was an employee, I think, it gives me time to look for maybe a better job. I mean, people seem pretty happy here.
I'm all for the 32-hour work week, and I hope this becomes an example for everybody else to move forward into.
Okay, so we know where we're going for the next year. We are a little over time, but let's see if we can quickly get through some updates from supervisors and the ED, and then we'll break. So I'll start down at that end. Doug, do you have anything?
No, I had one item, which was the TCD sign on the building, and Sarah addressed that.
Right, Jennifer?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just a quick thing for me, I've been doing a bunch of research on farmland preservation tools around the country and came across this really interesting program in Connecticut where any agricultural producer who generates $15,000 in gross income in a year is eligible for a 50% tax break, which I thought was an interesting concept. And as we start to think about policy changes in our strategic plan, I think there's a lot of ideas around the country that potentially we could draw from. And I thought that was a really interesting one. And because the threshold is so low, I think it really would help small producers.
It's a big one. I like that.
Yeah.
I've got the NACD.
Municipal and state property tax.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
I've got I know an NACD contact in there who's very vociferous. It should be really good.
Yeah, good. That's all I had. Just wanted to throw that out there. Last word, Sarah, anything ED? Okay. Then we will break here at 6:10. Come back in 20 minutes and we'll start our board meeting. Here we go. All right, welcome back, everyone. It is 6:30 and we are going to convene this November 19th, 2025 board meeting, Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors. We're recording audio. We have a full contingent of supervisors and executive director and staff and legal counsel here tonight. First up here is an agenda review. Earlier tonight, we had dropped item 8B from the agenda because we dealt with that in the work session. We did not need to have it on the board meeting agenda. And then just a quick question, the executive session on real estate is 20 minutes for the time we need for that.
I would say 10 is fine.
Okay, so let's cut that session back from 7:50 to 8 o'clock or whatever we get there, but it'll be a 10-minute executive session.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that, anything else? Yes.
Item 7, we can pull off, that resolution needs.
Oh, yes. Yep, okay, we're gonna come back to that next month, so we'll delete item 7. With those changes, we'll need a motion on the agenda. So moved by David, is there a second? Seconded by Doug, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Consent agenda tonight, 4 items, on consent tonight. I love this because it's always people giving us money on the consent agenda. They're fun. But we have our work session, and meeting minutes from last month, and then some funding agreements. And then the allocation methodology that we talked about in the work session earlier to satisfy our partners at the Department of Health. Need a motion on consent agenda? Moved by Mary Ann, second.
Oh, second?
Seconded by Jennifer. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We have passed the consent agenda. Takes us to public comment. This is the point at which any member of the public can address the board for up to 3 minutes on any topic that's on their mind that is also relevant to the district. I don't believe we have anyone on line tonight or in the room to make public comment, but I will ask, is there anyone that wishes to make public comment? Seeing and hearing none, we will close public comment. We'll move to partner reports. First up here is NRCS. We don't have Deshelle with us tonight. I also had a question about that because Deshelle is no longer working out of the Olympia office. She's mostly working in Lewis County now, so be inviting someone else like Donahoe or Audrey Meckenberg or someone else to be a part of these meetings.
The invitation is typically to the local office and they'll send who they feel is their responsive party. It isn't to an individual, but we can absolutely request that a different individual is participating.
Maybe
And we'll
we
take
should-
that off.
Yeah, maybe we should send an invitation to Tara, who seems like she would be the right choice. But if they would know internally, but Deshelle clearly is not the right choice.
Right. We'll do that.
Okay. All right, then the next partner report is the State Conservation Commission. Josh, you're with us in person tonight.
Good to see y'all.
Yeah.
Just a couple things. I guess I just wanna leave you guys with your West area rep on the commission is up for election, at the WACD annual convention. The 3 candidates have announced themselves. There may be more because you can, take nominations for, but if you haven't got that message or you haven't seen those candidates, all included in my board follow-up, but there's a supervisor out of Wacaika, Brad Fortner, a supervisor from Snohomish, Mark Craven, and a former district manager. Not sure what he's doing right now, Bill Blake. He was a former district manager at Skagit Conservation District. He's running. But you guys will all have your opportunity to vote beginning that Monday evening after the candidate forum, and it will be open for 48 hours. And you'll just get a secure message, and you don't have to be present to vote, but you can do that. So it's an important time for our agency, and I think reading about the 3 candidates and knowing I just would encourage you to read about them, and if you can listen to the candidate forums, that would be awesome. It's just it's a big one. Dean is moving on. He's been on the commission for quite a while, and so having a new face in there will be appreciated, and just would really encourage you guys to give that a little attention. And then the only other thing I'll mention. It's kind of sobering to open the Olympian or this afternoon and see the revenue forecast kind of continues to, you know, nosedive a little bit. So I think they're down 66 million between now and 2029. And that's kind of on top of where they were already starting their slide. But I think like their last quarter forecast didn't prove out as bad as it was, but this one looking ahead is still kind of seeing that. So there was a quote in there from the ranking budget writer that's just like told her caucus, don't bring any requests. So, you know, that probably never not happens, but yeah, so just, you know, we're kind of gearing up. I think we'll be hearing the governor's budget should come out. Usually it's like the first week or two of December, and we'll kind of see where we go from there. But not expecting any, I mean, there could be some policy, the WACD meeting, I think they're gonna talk about an potential elections bill that they are hearing about. So that from my understanding would be an off-ramp or an on-ramp onto the general election ballot for districts that would choose to do that. And then almost it sounded like a separate bill would be regardless of what happens there, financial disclosure, F1, I think they call it, similar to what, you know, if you were running for school board or senate or whatever. So I think they're gonna walk through what that means at the meeting and just kind of, there'll probably be some open discussion of it as kind of elections.
Just to clarify on that, so independent of election reform and moving to the general, the proposal would be that everyone who's currently serving as a supervisor files an F1?
That was my understanding, and that was, I think when this elections conversation was happening at the legislature, like that was a discussion point, and, you know, I remember Ron, and I passed this on to Danny, I'm just like, man, I need to just dig into his old files, because at one point he was like, hey, how about if we took a stab at this, that would be maybe less intrusive into supervisors, you know, standing financially, you know, maybe there's a way we can weave our way through this, but you know, ultimately none of that went anywhere. And so, yeah, I felt from my understanding and kind of hearing how Daniel was reporting it, felt like it was almost a standalone. So,
A big change.
yeah, it would be a big change. It would be a real big change.
I think you've got that right, Josh. And it applies to both elected and appointments, which I don't think that was in some of the original stuff.
No. I can't say no, I don't wish to.
And it's gonna depend. And when we were on the general ballot, I filled out the thing. I didn't think it was that big a deal because as a state employee, you could look up my salary anyway, which didn't account for investments and stuff, but I could see where people would be put off with that.
I think that's the difference, is it's well beyond just salary, it's your entire financial picture. I had to do it when I was on the city council.
Yeah,
And while it wasn't hard to do, it did require a lot of personal information to be made public.
yeah, like subsidies from federal agencies.
Yeah, among other things. Okay, that's it. Questions for Josh? All right, thanks, Josh. Doug, we talked a little bit about WACD and NACD in the work session.
Yeah, I've just got a couple more. One thing I would like to point out is this will be the last time I do this, because I'll be off of the WACD board. But we do have Sarah, who's a semi-member or really member, I'm not sure.
I'm 50% of a member.
50, that's the best way to
You
put
get
it.
to put every other month?
I'll give you half of it.
You could go a long ways with the half thing. You better stop there. So in a WACD, these are my notes from the meeting night before last. At the Southwest area meeting, John Keatley from the Cowlitz district brought up about the buffers on non-point stuff. And it was brought up at this meeting on Monday. We need to be able to have a process so we can react quickly to things like that, because we don't have anything there. When something comes up, you know, you got to pull your board and the executive director doesn't have the policy authority to do that. So they're gonna start looking at that and make members aware of the issues better. And basically the underlying problem is to expedite responses to things like the non-fish bearing stream buffer issue. That's just an example.
And that passed.
Yeah, passed. But John was asking for help to comment on that, and we tried to get the comment period extended. That was turned down, but we didn't have a mechanism to react quickly to that.
That's WACD.
Yeah,
Got it.
and only the executive director of WACD and the president can speak on behalf of WACD. Even though I'm a board member, I can't go to the Forest Practices Board and say, you know, this is what WACD thinks, unless I've got concurrence from everybody else. I can say that.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, procedurally, I think that's a good thing. The budget's looking good. Long-term investments for WACD made 76,000 last year, which that's about an FTE, so that's not too bad. They've done an audit. The draft will be out later this week for discussion, and then there'll be a final vote on it in the annual meeting. Staff is looking at WACD health insurance. We're looking at 3 different plans, more to come on December. They've adopted a meeting schedule for 2026, pretty much the same as this year's. And we talked about the legislative priorities, the CTA, forest health and wildfire, and the business and technology transfer. And we talked about the 12 resolutions, one of which is maybe going to NACD. And then the board retreat, which will be in conjunction with the annual meeting, will be on sustainable funding, the commission and CD relations, and the board structure, WACD board structure. And that's it for WACD. And Sarah has something to add.
I think the only other conversation line that might be of interest is for emergent issues that come up, like the Forest Practices Board thing. There's varying levels of information and understanding and opinions on those types of issues that come before conservation districts as a whole. And WCD could be a great convening spot to bring these issues that are timely, that have important comment periods, up with information on what exactly it is, what's taking place, what could the potential impacts be, bringing other speakers in that can speak to some of those pieces, because I think some of these really important issues come up and there's different perspectives. There's not a place where people can have dialogue to share those different perspectives and different voices from across the state. And there's not necessarily always a really slick avenue to find what is the actual information, what is happening and where. And sometimes it's a bit of a game of telephone where bits and pieces of information that are really important are left out. And so that was some feedback and some internal discussion at WACD, is maybe they could be a convener of people to have productive conversation and knowledge sharing around that. It didn't happen in the board meeting, but that's some offline conversation that.
What I suggested is refer this process problem to the Ways and Means Committee that's being set up that hasn't been peopled yet.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good way to do it. Because the 50-foot buffer on non-point, tell my background, non-fish bearing streams, Adams County, okay, what's that gonna get you? Nothing. In Clallam County, yeah, there's a big difference around the state. Adams County's sagebrush and tumbleweeds. You had a quizzical cut in your face, man, or you just
I
followed.
agree with the 50-foot buffer, that's all.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I
so
do too.
it's a good thing, but I do understand that it needs, I understand what you're saying, that it needs to be,
Well, I think we, as an organization, WACD needs to pick its fights too. Is this something you want to jump into? I mean, they got the Forest Practices Board, they have public outreach and all that stuff.
Yeah. But if they look at because there is a scientific document that's attached to it from the Department of Ecology, they just read that, it's pretty important, but anyway, just saying.
I was the technical ecology person for that. Yeah, so anyway, any questions on WACD?
No.
Okay, we got kind of a side note, there's 3 officer positions open. Josh mentioned the commission one that's open. they're looking, WACD is looking for a secretary, a treasurer, because Mark Craven, who's running for the commission, was the treasurer. And then the national director, the position I currently hold. So we'll see. There's one candidate for each one.
All right.
Anything for NACD?
Yep. It gets worse. They're talking about having the 2027 meeting in Washington State. And my first thought is we don't have staff capacity to deal with that kind of stuff. But NACD puts most of the bill and most of the work. And they wanted to know where. And I said, well, it's got to be a place with a jet port so people get into it. And we've had them in Spokane before in Tri-Cities. And for tours, I suggested in Tri-Cities, something with Ducks Unlimited, because Michael Crowder, former president of NACD, has worked with a ranch there, used to live right there. There's a lot of wineries. Also suggested Spokane. The quarry of the Spokane district is just a marvelous example of what CDs can do. They've got a really great forestry program, which can do tours. They've expanded into Idaho a little bit, and we're helping Idaho people too. And then there's going to be a tour at the WACD meeting at Four Lakes Cheney, a greenery. So maybe that might be a good run through first to see how that works. Okay, the bad news. The shutdown has been partially averted. The House has done their thing. It's not gone to the Senate yet, unless it was supposed to do that, or I got it backwards. It's supposed to go to the House today. Today, Wednesday? Yeah, okay. They're supposed to vote on it today, and that if it passes, that would go to Trump for signature, and who knows what would happen with that. The package includes an extension of the current farm bill through September 30th of next year. That's, I think, good news. And let's see, there's an opportunity for a Friends of NACD grant, $2,500 grants for innovative approaches. So I don't know if we've applied for any of those. Closes November 30th. And then the NACD strategic plan, they have a survey out to ask people what they think. They had a meeting late last week, and I got the notice for it 3 hours after the meeting was over, so I'm not sure what the problem was there. And the NACD Pacific Regional virtual meeting is going to be December 3rd, which unfortunately conflicts with our WACD meeting over in Spokane. But our meeting ends at 3 o'clock, and the NACD meeting starts at 3 o'clock. So whoever follows me will have their first meeting. And
Wow.
we're recording this, I won't say that.
All right, any questions for Doug?
Nothing.
All right, thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
All right.
You can talk to me on the side. It's kind of important what I was going to say, but I don't think I should say it in public.
Then item 7 is a resolution. No, we pulled item 7. Sorry, and I skipped item 6. Back to item 6, which is the elections resolution that we talked about last month. Provided some feedback on essentially the same thing we've done successfully the last go round. So tonight's the time that we need to adopt that so we can move forward with the election.
I move that we approve resolution 2025-05 for the elections.
Okay, moved by Doug. Is there a second? Seconded by Marianne. Let's vote on that resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, now we have deleted item 7, which takes us to item 8, governance. We have the first item under governance is an action item to adopt our strategic plan, which we have been working on for months and which we had a final look at just this evening in our work session. Unless there's any further discussion of that, I would entertain a motion to adopt the strategic plan.
I'll make a motion to adopt the strategic plan, of which I am very proud of our staff and our board for such a good forthright document.
Okay, then moved by Doug with accolades. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. All those in favor of the adopting the strategic plan, say aye. 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 Opposed? We got it. And the other item under governance is to take a look at what's coming up next month, which will be our last meeting of the year.
I do have a suggested change,
Well, let's get it up here. And is it work session or board meeting?
the board meeting.
Okay, let's look at the work session first.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll come to that. So it's, here we go. So Tina's gonna be here talking about community gardens, farmland preservation. Little conference debrief. Yep, a
Well,
lot
we
of
have
similar things.
something on the easement, shoot, Ernest thing, but,
The resolution.
yeah.
Yes, so yeah, let's review that ordinance again on real
Thank
estate
you.
transactions. Thank you, Doug. All right.
Erica Gutman, Native Plant Salvage, was gonna come to our November meeting as our community partner presentation, asked to reschedule because she has a board meeting tonight or something,
So
and
she wants to come next month?
tentatively,
Okay.
that's the idea.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, we'll leave it as TBD for now then.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a commitment. Okay, so now the board meeting. Doug, you had a suggestion here.
Yeah, under the partner reports
Yep,
that we put, replace Doug for WACD with Sarah.
yep,
And then this, flat line NACD.
yep. We will take that out as a standing item.
We tentatively add the resolution.
So delete D.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just suggest, they've got a thing called e-resource. NACD does, and you can get a lot of information from that.
Okay, so under governance, let's add a new item in there. Let's make it item 7B and move the other one down, which is that real estate transaction resolution.
If it's ready for prime time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on item A, let's take the word review out, because that is an action item next month. We need to adopt that budget before the year ends. All right, so with that, anything else at this point to change for next month?
There's a few items in the work session, but we can clean that up offline if you want.
Okay, let's do that. It's only a draft, subject to additional changes, so we'll go with that. So that then takes us to the first of two executive sessions we're going to have this evening. So this first session is to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate. This is permitted under RCW 4230-110-1B. This executive session will last 10 minutes. It will include board members, our executive director, and our legal counsel. We will have discussion and get information in that session. We will not take any actions. We'll come back at the end of that with the report out. So with that, it is, let's say we're going to go into executive session here at 6:50. We will come out of executive session at 7:05. No, sorry, we're gonna go in at 6:55. We'll come out at 7. Okay, we are returned from an executive session to discuss real estate. We got a briefing from our executive director. We had some discussion and provided some general direction. So that item is now concluded. And we have one more executive session to go through this evening. This is to review the performance of the executive director. This is something we do annually, and this is also permitted by RCW 4230-110G. So we can legally do this in an executive session. This executive session will include only board members and the executive director for the first portion. And after some discussion among the 6 of us, then we will ask the executive director to leave. We will have additional discussion among board members, and then we'll come back with the report out at the end of that. It is 7:08. So let's say we're going into this executive session at 7:10, which will mean we come out of this executive session 30 minutes from now at 7:40. Okay, we are back from an executive session discussing the performance of our executive director. We had a good robust discussion with our director and without our director. And this will be continued and wrapped up next month. And with that, we have come to the end of our meeting agenda for this evening. So all we need is a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. I'll second.
Our traveler motions to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded by David. All of those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.